Monster Hunter has been an absolute dominating force nowadays, rivaling the sales heights of countless other franchises to the extent that it can be considered mainstream. This tremendous growth can be attributed to several factors, with the most evident being the success of Monster Hunter World, followed by subsequent releases. However, I've never been able to get into any of these titles, which is what made the Stories subseries so appealing. These self-contained, turn-based adventures offer inherently different experiences from the mainline entries, with a greater focus on the narrative and cast. So with the upcoming enhanced port of the original 3DS Monster Hunter Stories, it seemed like a good idea and good time to experience at least a slight taste of this immensely beloved franchise that I would hopefully mesh with. Monster Hunter Stories takes place in a setting where humans can become riders, who are able to tame monsters instead of simply slaying them for materials. The narrative initially follows a nameable protagonist as they and their two friends, Lillian and Chevel, endure tragedy in their village during a monster attack. Unfortunately, this circumstance puts Chevel on a path of vengeance, leading to a time skip where he becomes a bitter rider. Lilia is uncertain of what path she should pursue, while you become a rider yourself in a potential effort to halt the Black Blight. This is a calamity threatening the world. The dichotomy of hunters and riders is also explored. The fairly typical premise never becomes particularly captivating though, but the plot doesn't shy away from the severity that's at hand. There's a noticeable mix of lighthearted banter bolstered by your companion, Naviro, with the harshness of the Black Blight becoming increasingly evident. Each region you visit is also distinct in its presentation and general personality, adding to the sensation of this being an adventure through and through. This re-release boasts voice casting for the first time in English and Japanese. Each character is cast well with strong enunciations and deliveries, making me care to a degree I honestly wouldn't have otherwise. The voice work was also much more consistent than I expected, so that was a good plus.
Birth is nigh. Now unleash your cry! No good, huh?
Gameplay-wise, Monster Hunter Stories excels at approachability. The combat system is comprised of a rock-paper-scissors relationship illustrated by power, technique, and speed-type attacks. In its simplest form, all you need to constantly concern yourself with is understanding the opposing monster's attack habits so you know which counter-type to utilize. The player character can use all three attack types in different weapons, while the various monsters you can capture each have transparent specialties, making your lineup crucial to consider. Still, aside from the special maneuvers like the ones that result when you and your monster use the same attack type simultaneously or stat boosts, you don't need to think all that much on the fly. Even in later areas, the difficulty progression is never major, especially if you take time to complete side quests that grant boatloads of experience en masse. This low-stakes design choice is sort of fulfilling in its own way as a stress reliever, but encounters can become dull as a consequence. Regardless, the various avenues of player growth are somewhat gripping to actualize since you can regularly update your monster lineup across vast open zones. However, actually obtaining new monsters isn't all that enjoyable. As you explore, you'll find numerous monster dens, which are light dungeons containing a plethora of monster eggs in their depth. You have the opportunity to gather them back, leading to you hatching them afterward. These dens are found naturally or by using paintballs mid-battle, which can cause monsters to evacuate at the end of an encounter. Following the hiding spots of these fleeing monsters leads to dens of their own. To be honest, I find this process overly drawn out and monotonous. Still, there is fairly involved gameplay facets that are the monster gene pools. You can view this as a fusion or a synthesis process of sorts, where the genetics of one monster can be channeled into another. This isn't a mechanic you need to min-max or anything like that, but it has the capability of heavily specializing and individualizing each of your monster's toolkits if you embrace it. Simply put, monsters can gain the skills of their other monsters, providing ample choice. I can imagine this feature being where most dedicated players spend their time if they become invested in the multiplayer battling. One avenue of the experience I found myself surprisingly addicted to was the Poogies. These pig-like creatures are essentially the collectibles of the game, and they're scattered all over the place. Aside from the rewards you obtain for finding set amounts of them, they're an appreciated implementation that gives you something to keep an eye out besides treasure chests. Between these and the countless side quests, the somewhat forgettable main story never becomes an act of concern that hurts the experience. I usually dislike using this term, but Monster Hunter Stories quickly became an addictive comfort game. While I never found myself particularly compelled by the narrative, The charming cast and genuinely grim implications give the world layers of perspective intrigue to pursue. The added voice acting and enhanced presentation do wonders to the 3DS outing as well. Plus, the monster acquisition and equipment retrievals ensured satisfying progression, even if the sheer simplicity of it all made some matters a tad too monotonous. Regardless of whether you've been sold on the main Monster Hunter series, this spin-off boasts more than enough of its own identity to give it a shot, especially if you've been craving a quality turn-based adventure. Noisy Pixel is giving Monster Hunter Stories an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.